do the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston's Arts Forum. This morning we have a special guest, Stacy Allen, who is the Director of Programs at the Anderson Center for Arts and at the Anderson Center for the Arts, which is formerly known as the Harris County Cultural Arts Center. So we are really, really happy to have her. Stacy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys all for being here. My name is Stacy Allen. Thank you, Dr. Rock, for the invitation. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to speak just a little bit about what got me involved into this work that I am doing now. Like Dr. Rock said, I am the Director of Artistic Programming at the Anderson Center for the Arts, and I am also the founder and artistic director of Nia's Daughters Movement Collective. And with Nia's Daughters Movement Collective, our mission is to create and support art and wellness initiatives through the lens of Black women and girls. And so this piece is called Aesthetic Inheritances. It's a literary work by the author Bell Hooks. And in this piece, I truly encourage you all to read it. In this piece, she speaks a lot about Black women and their work, specifically her grandmother, who was a quilter, and how a lot of their work, a lot of their creative work, they don't necessarily identify as art. And so she talks in the piece about her grandmother having a studio full of quilting and the meditative practice that it includes and all these wonderful things, and she gives language to it, very much like we use in the arts world, but how a lot of Black women, particularly in the South, did these practices as a part of life, and they didn't necessarily call themselves artists. And so I used that passage as the inspiration for this film and a lot of the other work that I do surrounding Texas Freedom Colonies. So Texas Freedom Colonies is a project led by Dr. Andrea Roberts. She is currently a professor at the University of Virginia. And she started this project while she was at A&M to essentially document and collect, to bring synergy, really, and to, I would say, codify in a way all the settlements throughout the state of Texas that were founded by Black people post-emancipation. So in this film, you'll learn about Barrett Station, which is a freedom colony, and you'll learn a little bit more about Crockett, Texas as well, which isn't a freedom colony, but does have a lot of African-American history in it. And so I just wanted to just kind of preface the work with that, and then I also ask questions after it. Again, thank you all for being here.
Pelton Ray Barrett, Barrett Station. I'm the great-grandson of Harrison Barrett, founder of Barrett Station. When you talk about generational wealth, scripturally, you're supposed to leave your children's children an inheritance. I often think of how hard it had to have been for Harrison Barrett. Well, I'm going to go further than that. Simon Barrett, who was Harrison Barrett's father, Simon and Elizabeth. How hard it had to be for them to bring that to a reality, because I'm just children's children. And they accomplished that. So my next step is to try to accomplish that too. I couldn't imagine getting anything done without the shoulders that I already had to stand on. Everything to me in Barrett is generational wealth and legacy. What I seen people do, and I got to live and see Black structure at its best in Barrett Station. We were self-contained, and everybody just threw that away. By around 1970, all they got threw away. My biggest fight now, what Barrett Station means to me, is to keep it Barrett Station. Everybody here call it Crosby. Everybody. I said, well, why do y'all think y'all supposed to call this Crosby? Well, Barrett Station doesn't have a zip code. And I often wonder, where did that myth come from? You know, because Barrett Station was called Barrett Settlement originally. It became Barrett Station because it had a post office mail pickup, and it was the only one. Highlands had to get their mail from Barrett Station. Crosby had to get their mail from Barrett Station. And they're trying to erase it. You take the post office schoolhouse out of a town, normally it dies. Luckily, we haven't died yet. Every major document I have, liquor license, food license, it says Barrett, Texas on it. They'll sit there and tell you can't say Barrett, you gotta say Crosby. But I got legal documents that tells you we exist. When you enter in Barrett Station from the south, headed north, coming from Highlands to Barrett, there's a sign as you enter Barrett Station. It says Barrett Station, rich in heritage, family, and education. That's what we was built on. You know, the sign is still there. It's been there as long as Barrett been in existence. I still believe it. I just need to get a lot of other people to believe it. The key to inheritance, land. You got to own land. If you don't get this lined up first, your inheritance is going to be washed away. You'll never see it again. What's your priority? You know, is your priority working to get to Friday so you can party? Is your priority to chase women? Is your priority to drink, get high, or is it to take care of your family, to see to the needs of your family? Is that a high priority to you? You know, if it's not, your legacy that's part two. It's not gonna survive. You got to make a conscious effort, so much so that somebody will see it. That no, that dude care about his family. Connect with your past. I mean, give all effort you can to find out as much as you can about it. Part two, acquire some land. Acquire some land. If you can't get as much of your past as you want, create your own past and work diligently at it. Keep the focus. Put your goals in front of you and work toward each one of them. Mark them off. Just keep knocking them off and keep working at it. You're gonna have some what the world would consider as failures. They're not failures. Just keep on moving. Just keep moving and do your best to find that strong woman to back you up. That's gonna keep you out of a lot of trouble, and it'll keep you in line too. It really will. Like I said, it ain't gonna be easy. Not one bit. But what have you ever seen worth having not working for? The benefits far outweighs the downside. It's so satisfying when you get that. Or you even get a glimpse of it. Just a glimpse, because I've only had a glimpse of it. Just don't quit. Put a few things in order. Prioritize it. Sit down and prioritize your life.
Your name upon the soil, that you may see your inner God, and cast your net upon the shore.
My father is an antiquer, and so our weekends were that, rummaging old antique stores. And just that smell, you know, that living death smell that antique stores hold. It's just, I remember that smell and interacting with that smell for as far back as I can remember. And so I was raised with that. I was raised singing in Kisi. I was raised singing Ewe Fulani Mass for Luba this and drums and the djembe and all the things. So I've always been baptized and bathed in living with the archive. That is not something that was sort of like learned it did at some institution. If we really lived it. Like our toys were African sculptures. Our collections are autobiographical. Our collections are extensions of our identities. And so really sitting with these objects and these artifacts is like sitting with ancestor, the creative practices and technologies and sensibilities. Like it's so much more than just things. I came out here to Crockett, rummaged in the home of my great-great aunt Bertha Lee Gibbons Wooten, and found a Aunt Jemima hand-sewn bed quilt. Slept under that quilt, fell sick for 5 days, and had amazing dreams. My granny would come and bring me like a little porridge, and I'm going back to sleep, baby. When I came back from that, I wrote the book Molasses, and I knew I need to move to Crockett. Like whatever magic was in that quilt, I need to be wherever that is. So I've been here ever since. The Western world has flattened our relationship with ourselves and with the three-dimensional realm. If there's a shadow to an object, that means something else exists. There's more to the world than even what we can see. And so objects speak. And so when we allow ourselves, when we quiet ourselves to listen, that's how I engage with this project or process of found objects. I literally would just walk places, hear, feel, and just rummage and look, because objects do speak. And so in doing that foraging and collecting, because that's one of my favorite pastimes, is to rummage in old buildings, to go to places or sites where things are falling apart and just sift through, to piece together the stories. You go to the sites of memory and piece together this and that and this to braid them in to create new myths. The human story is all of us. So through these objects, we're able to tap into our collective story. And that's the role of the installation. The installation is a book. I treat space like a book. And then you allow the objects in the space to speak and read like you would text. So I like muchness. I like for there to be a lot of things in a space so that something arrests you. If it's clean and minimal in this Western aesthetic, you ain't gonna get snatched up. Mm-hmm. Then if you go into a room that's like, you're really gonna be confronted with something. And that's the intention of my work. I want you to be confronted with muchness so that you can at least pull out one or two things. The found object is economic, it is quantum, it is living embodied archive. It is commonplace. So that means someone can come into the exhibition and see themselves, because it's not all conceptual and ninth dimensional. For African folk, art is functional. It ain't just for the sake of intellectual masturbation. It's functional. It's spiritual. It needs to be that. Our conception is art. The love making made to literally make us. The biological coming together of our bloodlines as art. So we have to realize that this desegregation or segregation of art and spirit and life does us a disservice. But everything about this practice and this process has been about realizing that art is life, life is art. And if you do not see your life as a living portrait, your life is your living studio practice. It's not something you just do when you go to this thing. It literally is your breathing. Your breathing is your art. Your creative force, your life force is your orgasm. It is your laughter. You realize that folk art and dance is your medicine. Your food is your medicine. The way you design your space is your feng shui. That's your visual meditation. Like, it is life. Your arts practice is your life. And so I think what we have to do is give ourselves over to it fully. When you commit and just fall into the abyss of everything that's possible, it will take care of you. You feed the art will feed you. It will take care of you. So you have to realize that there's no separation in your studio practice, in your lived practice. Everything is interconnected. It's all a part of everything. Everything is everything everywhere.
Baba did not read or write. She worked with her hands. She never called herself an artist. It was not one of her words. Even if she had known it, there might have been nothing in the sound or meaning to interest, to claim her wild imagination. Instead, she would comment, "I know beauty when I see it." She was a dedicated quilt maker, gifted, skillful, playful in her art, making quilts for more than 70 years, even after her hands got tired and her eyesight was quitting. It is hard to give up the work of a lifetime, and yet she stopped making quilts in the years before her dying. Almost 90, she stopped quilting, yet she continued to talk about her work with any interested listener. Fascinated by the work of her hands, I wanted to know more, and she was eager to teach and instruct, to show me how one comes to know beauty and give oneself over to it. To her, quilt making was a spiritual process where one learned surrender. It was a form of meditation where the self was let go. This quilt, which I intend to hold on to for the rest of my life, reminds me of who I am and where I have come from, symbolically identifying a tradition of Black female artistry. It challenges the notion that creative Black women are rare exceptions. We are deeply, passionately connected to Black women whose sense of aesthetics, whose commitment to ongoing creative work inspires and sustains. We reclaim their history, call their names, state their particulars, to gather and remember, to share our inheritance.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Do you have any questions? I'd love to answer. No, the first section is in Barrett Station, and in the second section we shot in Crockett, Texas, with Victor Lee Givens. And then the third section is really just It is. So my practice is rooted in dance and movement, and then I also worked with Danielle Mason, who's also a storyteller, and she works in photography and film, and she also studies Black material culture. We both do. A lot of our work intersects, and she's been traveling really the South and studying just Black women quilt makers and other textile artists. And so the last section is really just a culmination of how the work of Black women artists before us informs the practices that we have. So one of the site on the beach is in Galveston. Annually, the National Black United Front puts together this event called Sankofa. It's in October, and it's called Sankofa Caravan to the Ancestors. And hundreds of Black people, mostly from the Houston area, but really pilgrimage from 3rd Ward to the seawall in Galveston and wear all white as an homage to our ancestors that were brought through the Middle Passage. And so that's where a lot of the footage from the all white is happening in Galveston at Sankofa. Yes. Where was the exhibition of the quilts? So they were all over the South. So that's a lot of Danielle Mason's work, is she travels and really writes their stories, because like I was speaking about in the introduction, a lot of these women are makers, but they just are not just, I don't want to use the word just, but they are makers who are doing things for the beautification and the growth of their own families. And so what Danielle's work is really is helping them understand that they are artists. Well, not helping them understand, but helping the rest of the world know that they are artists. And so she writes their stories and travels and talks to them. And so a lot of those exhibitions are everywhere. One of the big ones was in South Carolina, and then it traveled to Tennessee, Atlanta, multiple places.
I'm wondering if they ever thought about coordinating with the quilt festival that comes to Houston every year.
Yeah, some of the quilts also, so the Community Artists Collective also has a quilt, a Jubilee Quilt Circle that we've done a little work with. And then I also worked with a quilter in Herm Clark. Her name is Joetta Gibson, and we'll be making a Freedom Colony quilt very soon that tells the stories of multiple freedom colonies. So yeah, they've exhibited in multiple places. I think right now their focus is like spaces that have a high traffic of African American people. So to make sure that we see our own artwork. Also, on the table outside, I have a photo album, and that photo album contains a lot of the photographic work of Danielle Mason on her journeys through the South. I would love for you guys to look at it, and it also shows a lot of the photographs that we were able to take in Berry Station and in Crockett and in a multitude of places that kind of give a little bit more breath to some of the things we saw in the film. Any other questions? Yes? That's the work right there. One of the first exhibitions I curated, one of the first exhibitions I curated, it was a Photo Fest exhibition. And I had two photographers, one man, one woman, and the man photographed his mom's beauty salon and his sisters and his nieces, all of them. And then the lady photographer photographed her dad and her brothers, and it was this really good juxtaposition of Black women and men photographing each other. And one of the most riveting parts is at the opening, his niece, the photographer's niece, came and she saw herself in the fine art photography. Like, how often do little Black children see themselves in galleries? And so the work is that juxtaposition of giving them that honor, but also understanding that it don't have to be in the gallery. If your mama got a quilt on the bed, that's art. It don't have to be at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's great when it's at the Museum of Fine Arts, because they usually come with a little, funding, but that's the hard part. But I will say that Mr. Barrett, when we interviewed him, he was in a time when he wasn't sure if the work that he was doing and the legacy that he was preserving was worth it. But for us to not be Barretts, like we're not a part of that lineage, to care about his story, that helped. And so I think the more that we do this work and the more that we do the spiritual work of understanding our value, that it will over time come to pass. I know that's not a direct answer, but that is actually it. Like, how do you help people understand the greatness that they already have? And so it is a movement that's happening. Black people are reclaiming their land ownership that they have in the rural areas of the South, not just Texas. We are reclaiming agricultural traditions, understanding how all of this is related to the continent and throughout the diaspora, and so it's happening. And we just have to find the people that are into this and keep it going. But I think that especially our elders, when they see themselves in a film like this or in something at the Gregory School or other institutions that are supporting Black archival work, when they see that other people care, it makes them like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't throw that photo album away. Absolutely not. You should never. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out, Stacey. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you for being here. If you have more questions or if you want to purchase Stacey's children's book, you can go right outside into Channing Hall, and she's willing to stop and stay in for a little bit longer and chat with you all. Thank you so much.